Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. With the third slash, I suppose, fourth edition of the dev server, we finally got the APHE shell changes and the testing parameters. If you remember on the first version of the dev server a few days ago, Chabby talked about the fact that they'd actually added in the new APHE shell changes to the dev server, and just, they were kind of there. And I was looking at it, and I was looking at how they were implemented, and I was thinking, what are they doing? Because obviously we had the vote, the majority was no, even by a slight amount, and yeah, they still put through the changes. They talked about the fact that this would take a lot of effort for them to do, and how, you know, the vote was there to check if people actually wanted this tested, and the vote lost, and then they still did it anyway. So it is kind of interesting to see what's going on right now, because the real question is, why even bother having a vote in the first place? So let's go through a post that was put out by Stoner, who is one of the community managers, and basically talks about what they're doing on the test server. So right now they are doing the initial test on the dev server. It's in an events and tournaments tab, where it's basically testing of APHE shell damage changes. So if you want to test it, that's where you can do it. It's also in the protection analysis, so you can see where it is there, and you can switch it basically on and off. So if you want to test it with the new stuff or the old stuff, you can do. And the 3 event features, so they've added fragmentation areas. So after this test, event and subsequent testing on the main server will hold another vote on introducing the proposed fragmentation area parameters for APHE shells to the main game server. And then number 2 is after the shell explodes, its warhead remains intact, provided that the mass of the explosive is less than 1.34% of the mass of the shell. The residual armor penetration of the warhead after the explosion depends on the ratio of the mass of the shell to the mass of the explosive. And then number 3 is change secondary fragments for APHE shells. They are now strengthened to the level of fragments from AP shells. So number 2 and 3 they're implementing no matter what. They're coming in the next update, Dance of Dragons, so whenever that is released. Number 1 is the one that you'll be voting on again, whether you want it in the game or not. So it's going to be tested on the dev server, which is what's happening right now. Then it's going to be tested on the live server, and then you can vote on whether you want the changes or not. Now, it seems kind of ridiculous that we're in this stage, because let's go through like the different opinions and the different setup, okay? So you have one side of the opinion which says the answer was no, even though it was by a small amount, doesn't matter, therefore scrap it and then move on to the next thing. The other side says, well, it was really close when it comes to the vote, so they might as well try it anyway, since it's basically a 50-50, and maybe after testing some people change their minds. And the bucket where I sit, on the side of those two sides kind of nibbling at each other, I'm just sat in the bucket going, why did you have the vote in the first place? And why did you not give more options for the vote? And why was it set up like this? Why did we even have a vote to test something? Especially if it loses and then you just do it anyway. What's the point? Like, what? I understand that one of the things that Gaijin has been doing over the last few years is to try and get the community more involved in decisions, whether it is conversations around BR changes, whether it's stuff like the roadmaps, whether it's more interaction from the community managers, or whether there's more interaction, from the general staff with Q&As and things like that. But in terms of like this setup, you didn't need the vote. If you were going to go forward with it anyway, you do the vote after the fact, so then people can visually see what is going on. Because unfortunately, when you just plonk a bunch of stuff in front of them, which basically goes, this is historical and realistic, we're going to implement it because of this, that's going to give a very aggressive reaction to one side and also a very aggressive reaction to another. And then you're going to get people who are just going to fight in the middle, which is exactly what happened with this type of change. It is better to push forward with the testing part, and then after the testing part, after all the opinions, after the conversations, then you have the vote. Because now what you've done is, since the vote was on the no side of things, 50% of people, more than 50% of the people who voted on that now believe that their vote is kind of worthless. Because why did they bother voting anyway? Because you're just going to push through it. And this is going to be the narrative now, that Gaijin doesn't listen to votes, and how even if you vote no, they're going to try it anyway, even though the reasonable position is, well, the vote was pretty close, so they're going to give it a go and see what happens. But the problem is, that doesn't matter now, because now you've created two sides to fight each other, and now instead of actually discussing what the APHE shell changes are looking like, are they positive, are they negative, we're just going to sit here and just backbite over and over and over again, with people going, why does Gaijin hate us, and then the other side going, give it a chance, and then them getting attacked as well, and it's just going to create this massive maul of people who are just pissed off at everything, instead of just testing the damn feature, which is what they should have done in the first place. Sometimes you don't need votes, especially when the vote is to test something. Just put in the thing to test. I understand it costs money to develop things. I also understand that Gaijin makes a lot of money in terms of the game, right? So give it a go, see what happens, and then let people react to it, instead of reacting to half-truths, or instead of listening to supposed community leaders about which way they should vote and why people are voting certain ways, and so on and so forth. Give the people the opportunity to test and come up with their own opinions. That's basically what you have to do. But so from now on, for me, when it comes to these types of things, let's have the votes after the testing instead of before it, so we don't muddy the waters and annoy people before they've even implemented the thing they want to implement. Because it's obvious that they want to put something like this in, especially because if you don't put this thing in, you get the 2 buffs to the APHE, so it just becomes even stronger than it was before. But it's just a really, really bad idea to do this. Like, you can ask the EU, like when they did this, when it came to the Schengen Agreement and when it came to Ireland, when they made them re-vote over and over again on slightly different rules because they wanted to push through the Schengen Agreement and wanted to make it happen. It pissed off a lot of Irish people, but at the same time, it's still rolled on, right? Everything still just works how it is now, but people still remember that. And when it comes to War Thunder, one of the things that I have had to deal with for years is people remembering a decision that was made 9 years ago in the game and getting annoyed at the fact that that happened, even though everybody's moved on and the world is very different. But yeah, so the handling of this has been atrocious. And I understand that they want to be as open as possible about their decision making and why they're doing this and how they're doing this, but you don't need to attach votes to it. Just do that after the fact, not before. And you survive or you get away from all of this annoyance that people would have, and people still get to vote whether they want to see it or not. That's how you do this, and that's how you always do this. Hopefully that will continue, and hopefully we can have that mindset. But something tells me that's not going to happen. Make sure to give it a go, though. Make sure to give the testing a go. Even if you voted to not test it, give it a go and see how you feel about it. Because that's the most important thing. Because now we do have the tools to see what's going on, so make sure to use them. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. And I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.